In this video, I'm going to walk you through the exact process we use to build high-quality B2B lead lists for any target audience. Because you can have the best offer, the best copy, and perfect deliverability, but if you're reaching out to the wrong people, none of it matters. If you don't know who I am, I'm Romain Osman. I co-founded 5element, and over the past years, we've generated over 1,000 sales appointments for B2B companies using cold email and LinkedIn outreach. So let's get started. So I will start by talking about how to identify your ICP. Then we're going to see how to segment your lead list. Then we're going to talk about sourcing leads, verifying your emails, waterfall enrichment. Then I'm going to show you a clear flow that we're using to automate a big part of the process to verify leads, do the waterfall enrichment, and also to do the AI scoring system that will be our last step. So before you start pulling leads, you need to get clear on who you're targeting. So here is what you need to define. First, you need to define the industry. So what sectors are your ideal clients in? You have here the link of all of the Apollo industries. So the best thing to start is to go on GPT or Claude to tell him exactly what you're doing, what your service is, to give him all of the industries, the 150 industries that you have on this document, and to ask him which industries would be more interested in what I have to, like what I offer. Who would need my service the most? And he will give you a list of all of the top industries for your specific service. Then we have keywords, because sometimes the industry is too broad and you need to be more specific for your service. So you need to create a list of all of the keywords that qualify a prospect or a company as qualified. And again, you can ask GPT for that. Then you need to be clear on the company size. And here it's mainly because it's a good indicator of revenue. If your service is only for companies that are making minimum 50 million in revenue, you need to filter out companies below a certain amount of employees. That's the best way to do it, because most revenue filters on the databases that you have online, like Apollo, are not accurate at all. So better to do it with the company size. Then we have location. So it's pretty straightforward. Then we have job titles. So which roles within these companies are you targeting? This is one of the most important things to get right. Should you go straight to the top, or is it better to reach someone lower down who actually replies? So spend some time on this because it's very important. Ask ChatGPT for help. Ask who is the best person to contact based on what you're selling, the company size, and the industry. Here you have a list of job titles that you can start with, but the best is to ask GPT for that. Then we have tech stack. So do they use specific tools that matter for your offer? It's not always relevant, but it can potentially be for your offer. Then you can go further by adding the business model. It's not always relevant. So are they B2B, B2C? Are they SaaS companies, direct to consumer, or service-based? Because on most databases, you won't have the filter for B2B or B2C, for example. So it's good to know exactly who you want, if it's only B2B and B2C. And then later, when we're going to talk about the scoring system, we will be able to filter out all of the bad leads, all of the B2C leads if you're only targeting B2B or the contrary. So then you need to segment your leads. So segmenting your leads involves categorizing your leads based on specific criteria. This allows you to create more personalized and relevant messages for each segment, increasing the likelihood of engagement. So different segments of your target audience have different needs and pain points. By segmenting your leads, you can address these specifics. You can do it based on the company size. The size of a company often dictates its resources, decision-making processes, and pain points. For example, you won't target the CEO of a company with 500 employees. So for example, from 5 to 80 or 100 employees, you will contact the CEO directly, CEO, managing director, CEO, general manager, etc. And above 100 employees, maybe you will focus more on only this time general managers, managing directors, and even more specific titles like marketing director or HR director, etc. So you can have 2, 3, 4 segmentations based on the size of the company, targeting different job titles, for example, or having a different message. Then you can do it based on the location because of the language, of course, and sometimes the time zone, because not every email sending tool will allow you to have a specific time zone per prospect. So it's better to contact directly on their time zone. So for example, it's better to have a campaign for the USA and Canada and a campaign for the UK for the time zone difference. Then we have job titles. So different roles within a company have varying responsibilities and concerns. Adjust your messaging to address the specific priorities and pain points of different roles. So a CEO, VP of sales, and HR manager care about different things, but all of them can benefit from your service potentially. So once you know who you're targeting, it's time to find them. So here are some examples of tools that cover 99% of cases. So for most businesses, and I already have a video about that, it will be Apollo. For local businesses, you can use D7 Lead Finder. I think it's only for the US. Or Serper plus Clay. So you integrate Serper in Clay. You have other tools for local businesses, but they're the best. You also have Apify. On Apify, you have Google Maps Scraper. So you can use them as well for that. For e-commerce stores, you have Store Leads. I think it's one of the best for that. For companies using specific tech, you can use Built With. So you export a list on Built With, and then you import all of the companies in Apollo and source the contacts that you need. Or you can directly start on Apollo. But if you go directly on Apollo, you will have less tech. And I think Built With has a better coverage. But most of the times, Apollo is enough. For finding lookalike companies or for better coverage of your TAM, you have PandaMatch. Now, Apollo also has the lookalike companies, so it's something you can try as well. And I've added here for better coverage of your TAM because the data from Apollo is mainly based on LinkedIn. And so when they don't have a LinkedIn presence, you can't find the data on Apollo. And so PandaMatch can help you with that. For SaaS and funding rounds, it will be Crunchbase. So you won't have any contacts on Crunchbase, I think, but you will have the company website. And so you export your list of URLs of the companies, and then you import that in Apollo. Also, if you're looking for more specific types of companies, we've compiled a document with over 20 tools that can assist you in this process. So you have the link here. You'll have for podcasts, for example, or Amazon sellers, etc. But in 90% of cases, Apollo is the best option for sourcing leads. And so when you do an export, especially on Apollo, you will need to export these columns. That's what we will need. And so, as I said before, if your lead source doesn't give you emails like Store Leads or Built With, grab the website, import it into Apollo, and find the right contacts there. And if you have the first name, the last name of the person that you want to contact, plus the website, you can use enrichment tools like LeadMagic, ICP, Prospeos to get their email. So in that case, you won't need Apollo. By the way, if you'd rather have my team build and run the entire outbound system for you, just hit the first link in the description to book a call with me. I'll show you what this will look like if we run it for you. All right, back to the video. So now we need to verify the email. So most leads you export will have their email status marked as either verified or unavailable, especially in Apollo. So here's how to handle each scenario. First, for verified email. So even if an email is marked as verified, we recommend an additional layer of verification using tools like Debounce or LeadMagic. You can also use any other tool under the category Clean Leads in the document that I shared here. So you need to add another layer of verification because when Apollo tells you that it's verified, many times it's not verified at all and it will bounce. So if you care about your email reputation, you need to add another verification. Then when you verify the email using Debounce, for example, you will have verified or safe to send, invalid, and catch-alls. You can directly contact leads with verified emails. You need to remove invalid emails as they will bounce and harm your deliverability. And for catch-all emails, you can use another verification tool like Ready to Send, Scrubby, or Enrichly. So you don't necessarily need to do this step, especially if your total addressable market is big. And I'm saying that because your bounce rate from catch-all emails, even if they're verified, will be higher than a verified email from debounce, for example. So if you really care about your email reputation, I would avoid catch-all emails. So we talked about verified emails. Now sometimes Apollo doesn't have the email, it's unavailable. And so just because Apollo can't find an email, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. So try other tools to double check those contacts. And so in this case, we can use Waterfall enrichment. So this involves using multiple vendors to maximize lead enrichment. So it's like I said earlier, if you have the first name, the last name, and the website, you can use tools like LeadMagic, ICPs, Prospeo, and find the email. So instead of doing it manually, you even have tools that do it all for you, that check on 8 tools, and that will give you the end results. You have, for example, better contact. And so this step is optional and mostly needed if your total addressable market is small and you need to reach as many prospects as possible. So for larger TAMs, it's usually not necessary since there are plenty of leads to work with. But even in that case, I like to do it. So like I said before, Waterfall enrichment involves using multiple vendors to maximize lead enrichment. So this can be very time consuming if done manually, because in that case, you will need to check on Prospeo, for example. If Prospeo doesn't find some emails, you will need to use ICPs, then LeadMagic, etc. And so we recommend tools like Better Contact or directly on Clay. So Better Contact is easier to use if you're not familiar with Clay, and so Clay is a bit more advanced. So now I'm going to show you a Clay flow that do all of the work for you. So the moment you have the first name, last name, company name, and website, the rest can be completely automated using Clay. It can even be directly imported into your email sequencer like SmartLead. So here's an example of the flow. So I'm going to explain in detail this flow, and in the description, you will have the link to this flow. So you'll need to click on it and just duplicate it to your own Clay account. So those are the columns that we import directly from Apollo. Then we have lookup in other table. So I have another table with all of my clients and all of the companies that I don't want to contact. And so I connected it here. And so it's going to check on this other table if the company domain from this table is the same as the one on the other table. It's going to check if it already exists on this other table. And so if it exists, then it stops completely the flow. And so this way, we don't contact companies that we don't want to contact. And so if it didn't find the same company domain, it goes to the next step. So the next step is MX provider. So here it's going to check which mail exchange provider they're using. So whether it's Barracuda, Google, Microsoft, Mimcast, etc. And so we're doing that because sometimes we don't want to contact Microsoft accounts, for example. And that's the case now because it's very hard to inbox Microsoft accounts. So we just avoid them. And so then on the next step, we have a condition, which is if the provider is Microsoft or Barracuda or whatever, it doesn't verify the email. And so it stops completely the flow and the whole enrichment. And so here we validate the email using debounce. Then we have LeadMagic find email. So if the email is empty here, it's going to take the first name, last name, and website and try to find the email. So if it finds the email, then we're going to validate it using debounce again. If LeadMagic didn't find the email, then it's going to use Kit. It's another email enrichment tool. Then it's going to validate Kit. Then again, if Kit didn't find the email and LeadMagic didn't find the email, ICP is going to try to find the email, and then we validate ICPs. Then we have a column here with all of the catch-alls. So if the email here was a catch-all here as well and here as well, it's going to gather here. So then I can add verify magically, and verify magically now is called ready to send. That's why above you saw ready to send. And so it's going to verify the catch-all and tell us if it's a valid catch-all or invalid catch-all. Here we have the master email. So it's going to gather the valid email from here, 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 and here if it's a valid catch-all. Then here we clean the company name to be able to use it in the copy to remove all of the Inc., LLC, and other things like that. And so then we have the master company name. That's what we're going to import in Smart Lead or instantly. Then we have the AI scoring system. So I'm going to explain that just after this part. Here it's going to give the score. And here we can directly import the verify leads in Smart Lead. So I explained the whole process here. So now let's talk about the AI scoring system. So pulling thousands of leads and expecting them to be a perfect fit isn't always realistic. Sometimes it's enough depending on how specific your criteria are, but in many cases, the filters from the software we mentioned earlier, like Apollo, are not enough. And so that's where AI scoring comes in. In this section, we'll go over how to use Clayagent in Clay. So that was this step here. And GPT-4o Mini to rank and filter leads, so you're only reaching out to the best fit prospects. So first, we need to create the prompt. So there is no strict formula here, but the more details you add, the better will be the results. So here are some key things to include in your prompt. So define, of course, what you're looking for. List keywords that signal a perfect match, because it's going to go on the website of the company and find what you're looking for. So for example, enterprise solution, CRM platform, or others. Ask the system to score each lead from 1 to 10 or 1 to 5. 1, not a fit at all, don't contact them. 10, perfect fit, definitely reach out. Here I gave you an example prompt for identifying B2B companies. It's a small prompt. I think we could be a bit more detailed, but it's a good start. Then we need to test and analyze the results. So start with a batch of 200, 500 leads. I think 500 is too much. Maybe 200, 300 leads to see how accurate the scoring is. So take a look at the score. Take a look at the score of 1, for example. Open the company and see if it's really not a fit or if it's a fit and there is a problem somewhere. And so do that a few times to make sure the prompt is good and optimize it over time. Then after that, if less than 5% of your leads score below 5, then your list is already solid and you don't need an AI scoring system every time. Because in that case, it means that very few in your lead list are not a good fit. And so it's better to save time, save credits, and just not run it at all. But if 20+% score below 5, it's worth running this process every time so you avoid contacting leads that are not a good fit. Then you need to refine the process. So as I said before, take a few minutes to review the results manually. Check websites of a few leads and analyze why they got a specific score. If the scores seem off, if it tells you 10, for example, but it's not a fit at all, tweak your prompt and run another test batch. And so then it will allow you to focus your outreach. So only reach out to leads with a score above 5, 6. You can even start at 4. And so if you want to focus on hyper qualified leads, only contact those scoring 8+, but I don't recommend that because many times when they're 5, 6, they're still a fit. And so scoring 10,000 leads cost in general $7 to $12, and you will have a higher lead to call ratio with fewer wasted emails. So many times it makes sense to spend that money to avoid people reporting you as spam because it's not relevant to them at all. So that's how we build lead lists. Now, if you want us to build and run the entire outbound system for you, so you can just focus on closing deals and you don't need to do all of that, just hit the first link in the description to book a call with me. And if you found this helpful, make sure to subscribe. I will be posting more tutorials and strategies to help you with your outbound. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.